The story begins with a woman named Shin Hunhop, who has possessed a unique ability since birth. She can see red lines above people's heads, which she refers to as the S-line. However, this ability has caused her to withdraw from the outside world. She even wears sunglasses all the time to avoid seeing the lines. At first, the lines seemed meaningless to her, but over time, she began to understand the danger they could bring if others became aware of them. One day, her mother accidentally saw someone's S-line, which led her to discover that her husband was having an affair. The revelation drove her mother to murder him. This tragic incident left Hunhop haunted by fear. She even tried to take her own life multiple times, but strangely, she always failed, as if she wasn't allowed to die. Eventually, she came to terms with her existence and decided to live, if only to uncover the mystery behind the appearance of these lines. She wanted to know whether she was the only one who had this ability, and who, or what, might have created it. One day, a new neighbor who had just moved into the building across from hers suddenly approached her. She brought Hunhop some apples and explained why she came over. But since Hunhop didn't respond or show interest in becoming friends, the woman, named Huiwan, simply left the apples at her door and went back to her apartment. Meanwhile at school, a student named Sion Ah was being bullied by some of her classmates. They often demanded money from her, but this time she refused, and even reported the bullying to her uncle, who is a police officer. Haeyoung, angered by both the refusal and the report, threatened to push Sion Ah off the school rooftop if she didn't comply, especially if she ever dared to report them again. At the same time, Sion Ah's uncle, Detective Han Jik, was working on a case involving a young woman who had been found dead in her apartment. Oddly, there were no signs of violence or theft. The apartment was tidy, albeit slightly messy, almost as if it had been deliberately staged. A witness reported seeing a man entering the victim's apartment the night before, wearing a helmet like a food delivery driver. However, investigations revealed that the woman hadn't ordered any food that night, and no clear motive was found. Nothing had been stolen, and there were no signs of abuse. However, it was discovered that she once had a relationship with someone who worked at a restaurant she frequently ordered from. The incident occurred in the same apartment complex where Hunhop lives. In fact, it wasn't the first time such a case had occurred in the area, it was the third, causing growing fear among the residents. While watching the news, Hunhop noticed a man wearing a helmet with a single S line above his head. He looked suspicious, and she suddenly had a realization. Soon after, that same man appeared at the apartment across from hers. Panic-stricken, Hunhop searched for her phone, thinking he might be targeting her neighbor. But when she realized his intention was different, she froze and cancelled her call to the police. The next morning, Sion Ah, who had recently been bullied, did not show up at school. Haeyoung broke into her locker and found a gift that appeared to be meant for someone special. Meanwhile, Sion Ah, who had stayed home due to having no money, suddenly asked her uncle for more cash. Seeing bruises and wounds on several parts of her body, Han Jik realized that his niece had been experiencing severe bullying. He asked why she needed the money, but Sion Ah chose to remain silent. Not long after, Han Jik received a report from Dongshik. He said he overheard someone living across from Juk's apartment building the night before, mentioning the arrival of a man wearing a helmet, someone Jik had previously found suspicious. Jik then went to visit Hunhop to talk to her. Coincidentally, his arrival allowed Hunhop to see up close someone who had multiple S lines above his head, something she had never encountered before. A neighbor who passed by Jik told him that the person he was visiting was known as someone who often isolated herself, to the point where even her trash was taken out by someone else. Jik explained the reason for his visit and hoped Hunhop would be willing to talk, as her testimony could be a key clue in the ongoing case in the apartment complex. Hunhop, who was finally willing to speak, gave a detailed explanation of what had happened the night before. She clarified that she had misjudged the man. He wasn't dangerous, but rather, he and the woman he visited were a couple. That night, the man wearing the helmet returned once again to the same apartment complex. Hunhop, who happened to still be awake, heard someone arriving and saw that the helmeted man was actually living on the floor above her. Suddenly, he seemed to be staring directly at her. Meanwhile, Sion Ah, desperate for money, began following a woman who had just withdrawn cash from an ATM. The woman walked through a quiet alley, and without realizing it, Sion Ah began to have dark thoughts. She planned to steal the woman's bag. But just as she was about to act, a group of people appeared, forcing her to abandon her intentions. At the police station, Dongshik reported that the third victim turned out to be the ex-girlfriend of a teacher who also lived in the same apartment complex. The man, named Jungmin, had once crossed paths with Han Jik. It turned out that not only did Jungmin know the latest victim, but he also recognized the woman from the case that happened a few months earlier. Before Jik could begin investigating, he received an emergency call about someone under medical care and had to leave immediately. He asked Dongshik to go ahead and check out Jungmin's residence. Since no one answered the door, Dongshik decided to enter and found a strange room with walls covered in red paint. As he was reporting the discovery to Jik, Jungmin suddenly appeared behind him and attacked him, knocking him unconscious. Jungmin tied Dongshik to a chair and then left wearing his helmet. Hunhop saw him from her window, and noticed that he was looking toward Huiwan's apartment. Realizing that the helmeted man might be planning something terrible, Hunhop pushed herself to leave her apartment, even though every step felt incredibly heavy for her. Meanwhile, Huiwan, who also recognized Jungmin, asked why he had come. But Jungmin, who, it turned out, could also see S-lines, suddenly grabbed her by the throat and said this was the only way to survive. Hunhop arrived in an attempt to stop Jungmin, holding a sharp weapon in her hand, but she froze in fear. Jungmin, noticing how terrified and helpless she was, easily disarmed her and wounded her, leaving her lying on the floor. Jungmin then continued with his plan. However, Huiwan fought back and knocked off his glasses. Panicking, Jungmin began desperately searching for them. At that moment, Han Jik arrived at Hunhop's apartment and found the door wide open. Inside, he discovered a web of red threads connected across a large map. From the window, he saw Jungmin attacking a woman. Jik opened the window and aimed his gun at Jungmin, just as Hunhop mustered the courage to help Huiwan. After being shot, the S-line that Jungmin could see gradually began to fade. However, Jungmin's final words made Hunhop realize something: he might have also seen the S-lines using a special pair of glasses. Behind that incident, Hunhop started to understand that the S-lines she had been seeing all this time might actually help protect people from danger. Later, she received a message from an unknown sender, claiming to be someone who could also see the world the way Hunhop did. The message asked her to come to a specified location. That message became a turning point for Hunhop, who slowly returned to living a normal life, no longer isolating herself. She even took down the newspapers that had covered her apartment windows for so long, letting the outside world back in. Meanwhile, at school, Sion-ah discovered that all her classmates now knew she secretly had a crush on someone. They humiliated her by drawing on the whiteboard, and Haeyoung even read her love letter out loud in front of everyone. Enraged, Sion-ah tried to snatch the letter back, even though it meant being beaten again. Soon, their homeroom teacher arrived and found the class in chaos. She immediately stopped the fight by pulling Haeyoung away and tearing up the letter. The class fell silent, except for Sion-ah, who couldn't stop crying from the shame. Because Sion-ah had thrown the first punch, she was deemed at fault. Yujin tried to give her some advice, telling her not to act that way again. But Sion-ah suddenly said that she wanted to end Haeyoung, and asked for permission to go home early. When she went back to her classroom to grab her bag, she suddenly found a pair of glasses inside her locker. With no one else around, Sion-ah decided to take the glasses home. Elsewhere, Han Jik visited Jungmin's house to investigate the motive behind the murders. Reports had mentioned that Jungmin often talked about safety, but his neighbors said he wasn't a religious man. Jungmin had known the victims, and it seemed strange that there was no clear motive. It turned out the red markings covering his room were lines Jungmin had drawn himself. Meanwhile, the glasses that Sion-ah had found allowed her to see S-lines above her own head. When she met her uncle, she was shocked to see his head covered in red lines. Confused and curious, she went outside to explore the appearance of these lines. They were interconnected, linking people nearby or even between neighborhoods. Almost everyone in the city had them. The next day, Sion-ah felt disgusted when she realized the red lines above her uncle's head could mean he had dated many women. Many students at her school also had lines above their heads. Unexpectedly, she discovered that their homeroom teacher didn't have any. He had never dated anyone before. Haeyoung, on the other hand, had a line that was clearly connected to someone nearby. Curious, Sion-ah decided to find out who it was, and to her shock, she discovered that Haeyoung had a special relationship with one of the teachers at their school. When the school bell rang, Yoojin introduced a new student to the class. It was Hunhop. But since she had isolated herself for so long, Hunhop stayed silent when asked to introduce herself. Her silence drew everyone's attention, especially Haeyoung's. But Hunhop didn't care and went to sit near Seon-ah. At the police station, Jik was searching for the glasses that once belonged to Jongmin. But after thoroughly checking the evidence box, they were nowhere to be found. With the trail cold, he headed to Seon-ah's school, not to talk about his niece, but to look for clues about Jongmin, who had once taught there. Yoojin was shocked to hear Jongmin was suspected of murder. She knew him. Jik asked whether Jongmin wore glasses, but Yoojin said she had never seen him wearing any. Meanwhile, Seon-ah, who had discovered that Haeyoung was involved with one of the teachers, suddenly pushed back. She declared she would no longer do what Haeyoung wanted. Just then, Hunhop appeared and told Haeyoung to stop bothering Seon-ah. Furious that someone stood up to her, Haeyoung grabbed Hunhop by the collar and shoved her to the edge of the building. But Hunhop didn't flinch. Instead, she threatened to drag Haeyoung down with her if she fell. That moment forced Haeyoung to back off. She swore to leave Seon-ah alone and walked away, unwilling to risk her life. But instead of thanking her, Seon-ah coldly told Hunhop not to interfere in her affairs. It was clear, they had known each other long before this. Elsewhere, Jik wrapped up his conversation and was about to leave when he noticed Yoojin had misbuttoned her shirt. He pointed it out. Yoojin laughed softly as she fixed it, and smiled at him. Jik walked away without ever seeing Seon-ah. Later, Jik visited a bar that Jongmin often went to. According to the bartender, Jongmin had once been a regular, though he hadn't shown up lately. At first, he seemed like a normal customer, until one day he began talking to himself. The bartender confirmed he wasn't drunk. Jongmin was counting something, obsessively, before eventually getting into a fight with another patron. And every single time he came to the bar, he wore glasses. Jik thanked the bartender and got up to leave, but suddenly, a woman showed interest in him, intrigued only by the notebook he carried. Meanwhile, Seon-ah had secretly followed Haeyoung and saw her meeting with her teacher. She snapped a photo of the two entering a hotel together. Not long after, Seon-ah sent the photo to Haeyoung. Panic struck Haeyoung immediately, but instead of telling her teacher, she stayed quiet, too eager to be alone with him. Later, Seon-ah received a reply. Only the teacher would be punished, as Haeyoung was still underage. She looked at the teacher in the photo and suddenly, a new plan formed in her mind, one that could benefit her. The next day, the teacher was stunned when an anonymous message arrived. Curious, he examined the photo to see if it was really him. Before he could do anything, Yoojin showed up and reminded him about class. In a panic, he stood up, just as another message came in, demanding cash in exchange for silence. The blackmailer was Seon-ah. She wanted the money to start a new life. She was tired of living in an environment where no one cared. Though she stayed with her uncle, he wasn't her blood relative, and he never paid attention to her. Hunhop, on the other hand, still had her biological mother, but she confessed she didn't even know if her mother was alive, having run away after her father died. Seon-ah's words struck a chord deep within her, reminding her that, like Seon-ah, she had never known what it felt like to live a truly happy life. The next day, the teacher secretly met with Haeyoung to discuss the threat he had received. Haeyoung finally revealed that the photos came from Seon-ah, though she had no idea how Seon-ah found out about their relationship. While Haeyoung remained calm, feeling untouchable, and returned to class as if nothing happened, the teacher was left deeply unsettled. Still, Haeyoung couldn't hide her curiosity about how Seon-ah had discovered the truth. Meanwhile, Seon-ah had fully taken advantage of the glasses' strange ability, using them to blackmail people in secret relationships. She easily got close to people she liked, which began to worry Hunhop. She noticed how people around them were suddenly fighting with their partners. Eventually, Hunhop realized something was off about the glasses Seon-ah wore. She had never worn them before. Suspicious, Hunhop asked if the glasses helped Seon-ah see the red lines. Startled, Seon-ah questioned whether Hunhop could also see them. Hunhop then described the number of lines above Seon-ah's head, and even pointed out others nearby, convincing Seon-ah that she truly had the same ability. Sion-ah confessed that she simply found the glasses in her locker and didn't know who they belonged to. Hunhop, fearing something terrible might happen to Sion-ah just like with Jongmin, warned her that the glasses were dangerous. But Sion-ah didn't care. She wasn't interested in where they came from, only in what they could do. Later that day, the two of them walked home together. Along the way, Sion-ah asked how to remove the S-lines. Hunhop knew that to erase a line, one had to eliminate the person it connected to, but she stayed silent, unwilling to let Sion-ah go down that path. Sion-ah, on the other hand, intended to use the glasses to expose cheating partners. Unknowingly, the photos she had sent to the teacher tormented him. He spent his days lost in thought, terrified his wife would find out and his family would be destroyed. That night, while Sion-ah was with her boyfriend, she received a message from the teacher asking her to come to the school rooftop to collect the money she had demanded. Before heading there, Sion-ah stopped to buy something, unaware that Haeyoung was secretly following her. Haeyoung wasn't just spying, she was after the glasses, having overheard Sion-ah and Hunhop talking about their powers. After managing to steal the glasses, Haeyoung was finally able to see the S-lines. But something strange suddenly happened to her, while Sion-ah began to panic, realizing her glasses were missing. She searched frantically everywhere she had been, even accusing Hunhop of taking them. But with the rooftop meeting approaching, she decided to head there first, leaving Hunhop puzzled and concerned after hearing about Sion-ah's late-night trip to the rooftop. On the rooftop, the teacher, desperate to save his family, begged Sion-ah to delete the photos. But Sion-ah refused. Her teacher had looked away when she was bullied by Haeyoung, simply because Haeyoung was the perpetrator. Cornered and full of regret, the teacher apologized and promised to gather the money as soon as possible. But just then, another message came in. Someone had already sent the photos to his wife. Horrified, he accused Sion-ah of betraying him. But Sion-ah was just as shocked, she hadn't sent them. At that very moment, Hunhop arrived at the school, worried about Sion-ah. But then, to her horror, she saw Sion-ah falling from the rooftop. Rushing toward her, Hunhop looked down at Sion-ah lying unconscious, and noticed the S-line above her head still glowing faintly. Sion-ah, who was still alive, was rushed to the hospital and underwent a long surgery. In a state of panic, Jik interrogated Hunhop about why she was at school with Sion-ah. Hunhop answered all of his questions. She explained that she went there to look for Sion-ah, who had said she was going to the school. However, Hunhop had no idea why Sion-ah would go there in the middle of the night. She firmly believed that Sion-ah did not come to the school with the intention of committing suicide. The incident from the night before led the vice principal to scold and blame the teachers, accusing them of being negligent in disciplining the students. According to him, such things should never happen at school. He even said that if someone wanted to commit suicide, they should do it at home, not at school, because he did not want the school's reputation to be tarnished. However, his words sparked a heated argument with one of the teachers, who refused to accept such accusations and felt that his remarks disrespected Sion-ah, who was still fighting for her life. Meanwhile, in class, Haeyoung's absence raised suspicions among some classmates that she might be involved in the incident. Not only the students, but even the teachers began to grow suspicious of the language teacher, who had suddenly disappeared without explanation. Feeling guilty, Yujin apologized, but her colleague reassured her that it was not entirely her fault. Later, one of the teachers asked Junggu about a rumor that he was going to get married. Junggu denied it, making it clear that he had no intention of marrying again. After finishing his work, Junggu went to visit his older sister, whom he hadn't seen for a long time. There, he gave his niece a small gift, a doll, but Junggu's visit was not without reason. He planned to stay at his sister's house for a week before eventually leaving the country. Meanwhile, as Sion-ah's condition worsened into a coma, Hunhop began to search for evidence, convinced that Sion-ah would never recklessly jump from the school building. Suddenly, a student from another class approached her and shared her suspicions about Haeyoung, who had coincidentally gone missing right after the incident. Kyungjin believed that the incident was not a simple accident, but a deliberate act by people close to Sion-ah who wanted to harm her. She was certain that Sion-ah would never commit suicide just because she was being ostracized at school. But then, Hunhop's attention was caught by the glasses worn by Junsun. She asked where they came from, and Junsun explained that he had bought them a year ago at an optical shop. He had only recently started wearing them because he felt uncomfortable using contact lenses. In the teacher's office, Junggu suddenly found a pair of glasses on his desk, though they didn't belong to him. Curious, he asked Yujin, but she didn't know either. Out of curiosity, Junggu tried them on, and to his shock, he suddenly saw red lines above people's heads all around him. Yujin could only apologize, feeling guilty for not paying enough attention to her students, which she feared had driven Sion-ah to attempt suicide, but Jik told her not to jump to conclusions, as there was no proof yet that Sion-ah had tried to take her own life. Jik then asked about the student who often bullied and isolated Sion-ah, but that student had suddenly disappeared. Jik showed a photo of the last student seen with Sion-ah, then interrogated him. Through that student, Jik learned an important detail. After taking the photo together, Sion-ah suddenly panicked and ran off, claiming she had lost something. Jik immediately checked the CCTV footage and discovered that Haeyoung had secretly taken Sion-ah's bag. After that, she left the area and disappeared without a trace. On the other hand, Junggu finally met his brother-in-law and apologized for suddenly asking to stay there for a while. Luckily, his brother-in-law was kind and welcomed him. However, the rumor about his cancelled wedding had already reached Byungkol, which made Junggu explain that the reason he called off the marriage was because he caught his fiancée sleeping with his own friend. Later, they went downstairs to buy something, but inside the elevator, Junggu's eyes suddenly focused on the red line above his brother-in-law's head, which seemed to be pointing somewhere. After finishing their shopping, Junggu noticed that his brother-in-law pressed the wrong floor button, which made him curious. He decided to press that button again to check, but just as he was about to step out, Byungkol suddenly stopped him, saying it was the wrong floor. The next day, Juke's superior suddenly closed Sion-ah's case. Since the doctor's report stated the incident was a clear suicide, the school foundation was also overwhelmed with handling suicide cases, but Jik was certain his niece would never do such a thing. He vowed to continue investigating, even if the case was officially closed. At school, Yujin complimented Junggu, saying he looked good wearing those glasses, but at that moment, Junggu's attention was drawn to the red line above another teacher's head. Yujin observed him as if she could sense something. Junggu then asked Yujin what she would do if she found out that someone close to her was cheating. Yujin replied that she would first make sure it was true before telling anyone. After work, Junggu went home with his sister and found a misplaced package in front of their door. Although the package was addressed to his sister's room, she insisted it wasn't hers, saying neighbors often wrote the wrong room number even if the address was the same. Suspicious of his brother-in-law, Junggu decided to check whether he was having an affair by delivering the package to the correct room number mentioned by his sister. Not long after, a woman came to take the package, and Junggu realized she was his brother-in-law's mistress. He then went to the mailbox area to find out her name. That night, his sister told him that her husband often stayed away for 3 days at a time when working at the factory. This made Junggu ask if her marriage was truly okay. She replied that she was happy with it. However, both of them still carried trauma from their past, especially with their father, who had cheated on their mother. Unlike his sister, who still kept in touch with their father's family, Junggu deeply resented them and completely cut ties. After catching his fiancée cheating, he finally understood what his mother had felt. Although his fiancée admitted her mistake and begged for forgiveness, he couldn't accept her again, even though she said she loved him dearly. Her betrayal always reminded him of the person he hated most. That was the very reason Junggu chose to cancel the wedding. The next day, all the teachers were shocked by a viral post showing pictures of the language teacher in a relationship with his own student. Through the glasses, a red line was visible above their heads. The photos spread quickly among the students, leaving Haeyoung's friends stunned by the revelation of their secret relationship. Not long after, the police found the teacher dead inside his car, and in the car they also discovered a note of apology, saying that he had ended his life because he could no longer bear the shame and guilt toward his own family. However, since the body had been left in the parking lot for 3 days after his death, Jik found it suspicious. He began to suspect the involvement of someone else, especially because the photos had only surfaced after the teacher's death. The next morning, Jik picked up Hunhop at school to once again confirm why Sion-ah had come to the school that night. He asked her about it since Hunhop was the only person who had found Sion-ah there, but Hunhop remained silent and instead asked Jik to search for the glasses that Sion-ah had been using. Meanwhile, Junggu, who was still curious about his brother-in-law's suspected affair, decided to secretly follow Byungkil. He eventually discovered that Byungkil was indeed having an affair with the woman living in room 401, the same woman who had mistakenly received the package a few days earlier. Junggu then called his brother-in-law to ask where he was, and Byung-kil casually answered that he was in a meeting, but when Junggu asked about his sister, saying he couldn't reach her, Byung-kil started to panic, afraid of answering incorrectly, and promised he would try to contact her. Junggu did this deliberately to find out exactly which hotel room Byung-kil was staying in. Soon after, Junggu went straight to that room and dragged Byung-kil out, realizing that Junggu already knew about the affair. Byung-kil tried to explain that it was all a misunderstanding and begged him to think about his sister. Eventually, Byung-kil apologized, admitted his guilt, and promised to end the affair that very day. Even though Junggu now knew the truth, he chose not to tell his sister. Instead, he said goodbye to her, saying he would leave for Canada today, all while making sure that Byung-kil had indeed contacted her. His sister told him that her husband was busy with work at the moment. Hearing this, Junggu became convinced that his brother-in-law just needed time, and afterward he headed to school to collect his belongings. By coincidence, Yujin saw him and stopped by, regretting that Junggu was leaving in the middle of such a major incident at school, but up until then, no one had discovered who had uploaded the incriminating photos. Rumor had it that the pictures of the teacher with his student had been circulating among the student's social media accounts for some time already. Her words made Junggu remember his brother-in-law's mistress, and after checking the woman's social media, he discovered that they were still in contact. In fact, he also learned that Charon was pregnant. Furious, Junggu decided to tell his sister, but instead, he witnessed her car repeatedly ramming into Charon's vehicle, as if she already knew about their relationship. Junggu rushed to pull his sister out of the car, but to his shock, she blamed him for something that had driven her to this point. Byung-kil then arrived and briefly approached the two of them before turning to Charon. His worried behavior toward her enraged Junggu even further, leading him to strike Byung-kil, but suddenly his sister stopped him and allowed Byung-kil to leave together with the woman. It was then revealed that the man was not actually her husband. His real name was Taezik, and he was Charon's husband. In reality, it was Junggu's sister who had been having an affair with him, and the reason she recklessly rammed Charon's car was because she was devastated that she could no longer be with Taezik after her younger brother had uncovered their secret relationship. Meanwhile, at the police station, Jik was staring at the teacher's suicide note when something struck him. He immediately rushed to Sion Ah's room to search for something. Not long after, Jik waited for Hunhop outside, and when she arrived, he immediately showed her a picture of the glasses made by Sion Ah. Jik asked, "Are these the glasses you were talking about, Hunhop? And what exactly can be seen through them?" Hunhop explained that whoever wore the glasses could see red lines called the S-line, lines that connect people who have had physical relationships. She also admitted that she had been able to see those lines since birth. The person who took Sion Ah's glasses was likely the culprit, but she didn't know who it was. She could only be sure that Sion Ah had not taken her own life. The existence of the glasses made Jik suspect that several recent cases were also caused by them. Just like what happened with Jongmin, he also finally realized that the reason Hunhop always wore dark sunglasses was because she had lived a difficult life since childhood. Meanwhile, the glasses they were looking for turned out to be in the possession of a teacher named Maisung, who worked at the same school as Hunhop. Besides being a teacher, Maisung secretly dreamed of becoming a famous actress. At school, she was also very fond of a music teacher. Strangely, after work, Maisung would always go to a hotel in disguise. She wore a pink wig and visited a hotel that happened to be the same place where Hunhop was now working part-time. At the police station, Jik quietly reopened the investigation into Sion Ah's fall together with Dongshik. According to the information they gathered, the language teacher was extremely afraid of heights, which indirectly suggested that he would not have had the courage to push someone. People close to Sion Ah also became suspects in Juk's eyes, especially Haeyoung, who had disappeared after the incident. However, Jik was convinced that his niece would never commit suicide, and he grew more curious about the glasses Sion Ah had worn, because they had suddenly made her seem like a completely different person. Meanwhile, Hunhop was suddenly approached by her friends, who had discovered that she was now working at the hotel. Besides visiting her, they were also curious about the hotel's guests. Not long after, Maisung arrived and booked a room at the hotel. Youngjin, who was intrigued to see her alone, felt like she had seen that woman somewhere before. It turned out that Maisung had booked the room only for herself. Lying on the bed, she admitted that she had been with many men, but when she thought about one particular man she liked, she found herself unable to do it anymore, afraid that she could never truly have him. Not long after, Maisung left the hotel, and from the top of the building, Youngjin, who saw her, said that the woman was actually a staff member from their school's administration office. Mi-sung then went back home and put on the glasses, which revealed countless red lines stretching across the entire cityscape. At the police station, Jik read through an old case file to review the details of Hunhop's father's death. The report stated that the culprit, Hunhop's own mother, was suspected of discovering the victim's affair through the imaginary lines Hunhop could see. That report had once made Jik doubt Hunhop's ability, but after seeing a photo of her mother, Jik suddenly remembered the strange line patterns inside Hunhop's apartment, and in that moment, he finally came to believe in her ability. Not long after, Jik went to see Hunhop to ask whether Sion-ah had a line above her head. Although Hunhop couldn't tell him, Jik suspected that Sion-ah did have one. Hunhop didn't know who the line was connected to, but he could be sure it wasn't linked to her classmates. This made Jik think that the person connected to Sion-ah might be the one who pushed her down. While at her apartment, Hunhop accidentally saw a news report about a murderer who had been caught, and he was wearing glasses exactly like the ones Sion-ah used. That made Hunhop suspect that there was more than one pair of those glasses. The next day at school, Mi-sung gathered the courage to enter the music room to meet the man she liked. That courage allowed her to finally talk to him, and there she shared her interest in the arts. To her surprise, the music teacher guessed her dream of becoming an actress, which made her happy. Then, suddenly, a line appeared above their heads, connecting them. At school, Junsun, who knew Hunhop liked quiet places, suddenly invited her to the swimming pool after school. There, Hunhop asked how Junsun knew about the place, and it turned out he had been on the swimming team since middle school. But since Hunhop couldn't swim, she suddenly jumped into the water, and from there, she was finally able to see the world without the red lines. Junsun, who panicked, quickly jumped in to save her, but they both laughed when they realized the pool was very shallow. Later, the two of them ate together, and that was when Junsun asked why Hunhop had suddenly jumped. Hunhop admitted that since she was a child, she had been able to see red lines above people's heads, and inside the pool, she was finally able to see the world without them. Hearing that, Junsun asked if there was a line above his head, and Hunhop said there wasn't. Just like him, the same went for Youngjin. Junsun believed her because he felt there was no reason for her to lie. Unexpectedly, that closeness made Hunhop smile as she was about to fall asleep, and suddenly, a red line appeared above her head. The next day, Mi-sung returned to the hotel to the same room, but just as Hunhop was about to clean, she overheard Mi-sung talking to herself inside, saying the same things as before. Convinced that one day she would become a famous actress, the reason she often stayed at the hotel was so she could express her feelings without being overheard by others. The glasses she wore were also found in that room, making her feel perfect, because with them she could see people who had been physically intimate. Not long after, the music teacher she liked entered the room next door, and through a hole in the wall she had made, Mi-sung was shocked to see him appear. But soon after, a woman entered the room, and it turned out to be the teacher's girlfriend. Mi-sung's heart shattered even more, especially when she saw the man she loved sleeping with that woman. Not long after the woman left, Mi-sung went downstairs, removed her wig, and extended her stay at the hotel. She then brought a fire extinguisher and poured drugs into bottled water. A few days later, Mi-sung used the fire extinguisher to hit the teacher's girlfriend. Then she tied her up in her room and put on the woman's clothes. Mi-sung then went to meet the music teacher, who was waiting for his girlfriend, leaving him confused by what she was doing. As Mi-sung slowly approached the man, she repeated the same words she had often said in front of the teacher, which made the man feel uncomfortable and decide to leave. But suddenly, Mi-sung threw her stapler just as the man began losing consciousness due to the drugs she had slipped in earlier. Then, Mi-sung placed the man on the bed while saying the same words, but suddenly, blood began to flow from his back, causing Mi-sung to panic. In the end, she chose to satisfy her desire to sleep with him. However, afterward, Mi-sung suddenly decided to take her own life, stapling her entire body while repeating the same words inside the bathroom. A few moments later, the woman managed to escape from the room just as Hunhop arrived. She then explained what had really happened, and eventually, Hunhop discovered the two guests who had already died. Not long after, the police arrived to investigate the case. However, Jik did not find the glasses he was looking for. Hunhop couldn't confirm whether the two victims were connected, as their lines above their heads were not linked, but she believed the incident was related to the glasses Mi-sung had used, because after wearing them, Mi-sung seemed to change. The glasses could grant abilities, but if they ended up in the wrong hands, they would become extremely dangerous. Jik then went to visit Sion-ah at the hospital, and there he began to think that the incident involving her truly had something to do with the glasses. After that, Jik returned to the crime scene to search for the glasses in the bathroom, and after draining the water in the tub, the glasses suddenly appeared. Jik put them on, and to his shock, he saw the red lines above his own head. Back to Han Juk's past, when he had to accept the harsh reality of taking over the role of Sion-ah's parents since she was a child. Even though at that time he still wanted to live freely, the young Jik often left Sion-ah alone, as if he didn't care about her, but deep down inside, Jik actually loved Sion-ah very much. Even now, he still worries about her more than anyone else. Now that Jik is wearing the special glasses, he begins to notice the red lines above other people's heads. Out of curiosity, he even tries to touch one of those lines. Jik then asks Dongshik how many people are close to him to check if the number matches the lines above his head. Dongshik answers, and it turns out to be exactly the same number. But suddenly, a teenage girl walks into the police station, and seeing her makes Jik remember Sion-ah. Jik then takes Jiwon to visit Sion-ah in the hospital because he wants to find out who has a connection with her, but the line doesn't link to Jiwon, meaning he isn't the one. Jik asks if there's anyone else close to Sion-ah. Jiwon says he doesn't know, but he does know that Sion-ah hates someone even more than the people who used to bully her at school. Meanwhile, Hunhop, who now has friends, starts chatting in the group they made together. The three of them talk about plans for Hunhop's 17th birthday party, which will be in a week, but suddenly, someone invites Hunhop to another birthday party on the exact same day. The number is the same as the mysterious one that texted her before. The next day, some students in class feel uneasy when Gina, who rarely joins training lately, suddenly shows up, but Gina stays quiet, and Hunhop notices the number of lines above her head. After school, Gina goes to the police station and confesses that she was raped by someone she used to train with as an idol trainee. She says they were drinking together, and she passed out. When she woke up, her pants were on backwards. The person she was with had already disappeared, but when Jik hears Gina say she's never had any physical relationship before, he doubts it after seeing the number of S lines above her head. After getting this information, Jik and Dongshik go to the school to meet the suspect, but there, Jik unexpectedly runs into Yujin, who greets him and asks how Sion-ah is doing. Yujin says she plans to visit Sion-ah, but her condition isn't good yet. Seeing Jik with glasses, Yujin compliments him, making him smile awkwardly and change the subject by explaining why he's at the school. They then meet Han Yul, who turns out to be Gina's senior and is now the main suspect in the case. Han Yul confidently answers Juk's questions and admits he invited Gina to drink at his apartment, saying it was to relieve school stress. Han Yul, knowing he's a suspect, firmly states that he had no interest in sleeping with Gina, but seeing the line above his head, Jik grows suspicious. Since there are no more questions, Jik decides to leave, but suddenly he runs into Hunhop, who immediately asks why Jik is wearing the glasses. Jik refuses to explain everything and simply says he wants to understand the glasses function first. He also admits that wearing them gave him chills, because everything Hunhop once said about the world turned out to be true. However, Juk's decision not to throw away the glasses leads to an argument between him and Hunhop, because Hunhop is aware of the danger the glasses carry, especially since they're connected to what happened some time ago. Their argument stops when Yujin overhears the commotion. She briefly asks what happened before Hunhop decides to walk away. Jik then tells Yujin that everything is fine. He even invites her to have dinner before leaving as well, but unexpectedly, Yujin can also see the S line just like Hunhop, and she smiles when she notices the number of lines above Juk's head. Jik later goes to ask for information from the idol group's training manager. According to the manager, Gina is known as someone who prefers to have fun rather than focus on her training. The manager also admits that he brought Gina there because he believed she had potential, but her talent never showed, and instead, she often invited other trainees to go out drinking. From the statements they gathered, they still couldn't determine who was in the wrong since each person had their own version of the story, and the case itself was very sensitive, so they couldn't interrogate minors carelessly. The next day, they interrogate Hanyul and Gina in separate rooms. Hanyul shows the messages proving that Gina came on her own and was not forced, but Gina has deleted those messages and also washed the clothes that could have been used as evidence. Jik regrets this, especially since Gina only reported the incident a week after it happened. She could be accused of making a false accusation, and her mother then explains that she was the one who washed the clothes. Jik then allows Hanyul to leave in order to see whether their lines are connected. After realizing that Gina was lying, Jik asks Dongshik to close the case. Not long after, Jik meets Hunhop, who has been waiting for him. Hunhop tries the glasses and doesn't bring up the argument they had at school earlier. Jik then gives her a photo of her mother and explains that her father's death was not her fault, but the photo only makes Hunhop miss her mother even more, though she still doubts whether her mother is alive. Even though the glasses are dangerous, Jik believes they can be used to help people, just like Hunhop did before. The case involving Gina, Hunhop's classmate, was also solved thanks to the glasses, since there was no line connecting the two of them, and Gina was caught lying when she claimed she had never been physically involved with anyone. In reality, there were 4 lines above her head. However, about a week earlier, she had no lines at all. After hearing this, Jik immediately asks Dongshik to reopen the investigation and they go to Hanyul's place. Hanyul turns out to be someone who likes to keep everything neat, so they find no clues there, not even empty drink bottles. Meanwhile, Hunhop returns to the hotel to search for clues, but without realizing it, a woman is watching her from afar. She goes back inside the hotel, suspicious that someone deliberately placed the glasses there to end up in the hands of an investigator, but suddenly, Hunhop sees an S-line appear behind her. Junsun says he happened to be passing by and saw Hunhop entering the hotel, so he followed her out of curiosity to see what she was doing there. Hunhop says she's just looking for something she left behind, but the atmosphere in the place makes Junsun so scared that he ends up hugging Hunhop when startled. They then talk about the S-line girl that Hunhop once mentioned, and the conversation slowly draws them deeper into their emotions. Back to Jik, who is searching for evidence at a used clothing disposal site. There, Jik finds a plastic bag containing a black bedsheet, which he believes belongs to Hanyul. Jik becomes suspicious because even though Hanyul claims to be a neat person, the bedsheet on his bed was messy. This bedsheet could become strong evidence in Gina's case, since Hanyul admitted that he moved the unconscious Gina onto the bed. Now, all they can do is wait for the forensic results, but the fact that the S-line between them is not connected keeps bothering Juk's mind. Not long after the forensic results come out, they interrogate Hanyul again and ask why he threw the bedsheet away. Hanyul admits that he did it on purpose because he's not the kind of person who would use something someone else had used before. As for the blood found on the bedsheet, Hanyul claims he doesn't know anything about it. Jik then questions him about why he got close to Gina when it's clear he has no interest in her. Hanyul says he let Gina come over because she wouldn't stop begging him. He then gave her the remaining drink, and she finished it all by herself. She then started to get angry, refused to go home, and even insisted on drinking more. That's when Hanyul decided to go to the convenience store to buy more drinks, and in the end, Gina passed out from drinking too much. Since Hanyul is still underage, Jik suspects someone helped him buy the drinks. He checks the CCTV footage and confirms that Hanyul bought them himself, but noticing a time gap while Hanyul was away, Jik suspects someone else entered the place. In the CCTV footage, a group of teenagers is seen walking by an hour before Hanyul arrived. Jik counts the number of lines above their heads and realizes that each of their lines increased by 1 after they returned from the direction of Hanyul's house. The next morning, Hunhop notices that the lines above Gina's head are connected to 4 students at the school. Shocked, she calls Jik, and coincidentally, Jik is already on his way because he knows what's going on. One by one, the students are interrogated in separate rooms. None of them want to talk, until one boy with a single line on his head begins to panic and begs to be released. Jik agrees, but instead of taking him home, he takes the boy somewhere else, making him even more nervous. Jik brings him to the crime scene, knowing that bringing a suspect to a familiar place will make them more anxious. Dongshik is confused at first, but after Jik explains, he understands, and just as expected, when they arrive at the scene, the boy suddenly tries to run away, and Dongshik chases after him. Jik then tells the boy that his friends have been released because they were found not guilty. Hearing this, the boy realizes he is the only suspect, and eventually, he agrees to confess everything in exchange for being released. According to his confession, the mastermind behind Gina's case is Hanyul, who made Gina pass out using sleeping pills. The 4 students admit to what they did under Hanyul's orders, and it turns out Hanyul was also there, calmly sitting and watching them. Jik then shows the bottle of sleeping pills found in Hanyul's room. At first, Hanyul denies everything, but after Jik tells him that his friends have already confessed, he finally admits that he was the mastermind behind it all. Even though all of them had been proven guilty, Jik still couldn't be sure whether they would actually be punished or not. Because the final decision was in the hands of the court, Jik then escorted Hunhop home, but suddenly he received a call from the hospital where his father was being treated. He had no choice but to drop Hunhop off at a bus stop and rush there. It turned out that Juk's father had suddenly disappeared, and the CCTV footage showed a woman taking him away, but no one knew who she was since it was her first time coming there. After carefully looking at the footage, Jik realized it was Yujin, who intentionally stared at the CCTV camera. Then, someone sent him a photo of Sion Ah, which made Jik panic and ask Dongshik to investigate Yujin's identity. Jik rushed back to the hospital where Sion Ah was being treated, and to his relief, she was still alive. He felt a huge weight lifted off his chest, but suddenly the glowing line above Sion Ah's head moved toward the door of her room. Jik pointed his gun at the door, but to his surprise, the person who walked in was his own father. His father slowly approached Sion Ah, and Jik was shocked to see that the glowing line above her head was connected to his father. Overwhelmed by emotions and betrayal, Jik intended to shoot his father, but in the end, he just couldn't do it. He couldn't comprehend why his father would do something so cruel to Sion Ah. Some time earlier, a woman named Junwei who worked at a cafe suddenly found out that a video of her being intimate with her boyfriend had been spread online. The video went viral on social media, and soon everyone on campus knew about it. Humiliating her deeply, she wanted to report him to the police, but he threatened her. Junwei's days were filled with shame and despair, and it broke her mentally until she decided to end her life. But suddenly, Yujin appeared and pulled her away from the edge. Before leaving, Yujin handed her a pair of special glasses. Meanwhile, Hunhop took Junsun to a place just a few hours before her birthday. She wanted to spend her birthday night with the person she liked. Although Junsun was hesitant at first, he eventually agreed. Hunhop didn't want to force him, and before they did anything, Junsun asked if she truly liked him. Hunhop nodded, and they ended up making love. Afterward, the red line above their heads connected, and they walked home together, but on the way, Hunhop suddenly felt hungry, and Junsun told her to wait while he went to buy something. Curious about the glowing line above her head, Hunhop tried to touch it, but the line suddenly trembled, followed by the sound of something heavy falling, causing panic among the people nearby. The sound came from a falling iron bar, and shockingly, the victim was Junsun. The incident left Hunhop devastated as she realized she was born under a curse. Anyone who stayed close to her would be in danger, and sometimes even die. But Junsun wasn't the only one. Kyungjin was also in danger. Soon after, Hunhop received a call from the same number inviting her to a birthday party. She then called Jik for help and explained that every year on her birthday, she always received a birthday card. At first, she thought the cards came from her mother, but now she finally understood. Someone had been watching and waiting for her birthday every year. The recent messages she received made it clear that the person was the same one who had given her the glasses, and most likely, that person was Yujin, someone with no identity at all, as if she had never existed in this world. They went to the school to look for Kyungjin, and noticed that one of the classrooms still had its lights on, which meant someone was inside. Hunhop ran ahead toward the room, followed by Jik. Even though they ran to the same place, Jik didn't find anyone inside the classroom, but Hunhop did. She found Kyungjin there. Kyungjin said that Hunhop had told her to come to the school, but after that, she remembered nothing and ended up tied to a chair. The two of them then left the classroom to find Jik, but strangely, they couldn't meet him at all. It was as if they had entered a different dimension. Even more unsettling, when Hunhop went downstairs, she somehow ended up on the same floor again, making her realize that they were trapped inside the school. Meanwhile, Jik had gone upstairs. Hunhop heard the sound of the rooftop door closing, so she took Kyungjin with her to the rooftop, but when they got there, no one was around. Jik had entered a different dimension, and from afar, he saw a group of people wearing the same clothes and glasses. One of them was Junwei, the first person who had received the glasses from Yujin. Yujin had intentionally given the glasses to people who carried deep personal struggles, influencing them to eliminate those they hated. They were just a small example of what Yujin planned to make the entire world do. Once people were able to see and understand the meaning of the S-line without glasses, those seeking to cleanse their sins would kill the ones who had caused their suffering. That was exactly what Junwei was doing. She believed that once the world was covered in red, everyone would be reborn pure. To achieve that, she had to erase the last person connected to her sins. Back with Hunhop, she was shocked to see Kyungjin suddenly wearing the glasses. Hunhop told her to take them off, but Kyungjin got angry. She said that if Hunhop died, everyone would be able to see the S-line without glasses. and that her homeroom teacher had told her so. Hearing that made Hunhop realize that the person who had spread the glasses was Yujin. Elsewhere, Yujin, the leader, walked toward her followers gathered in front of an altar. All of them turned their gaze toward Jik. Panicking, Jik ran to his father to save him, but Yujin suddenly handed him a knife and asked if he didn't want to save Sion-Ah. Remembering what his father had done to Sion-Ah, Jik took the knife. But Jik wasn't under Yujin's control. He couldn't fight her either. In the end, Yujin killed Juk's father as a twisted way to help Sion-Ah. Jik then pulled out his gun and fired every bullet he had at Yujin, but someone like him could not kill her. Yujin then told him that the world would soon be covered in red and admitted that she was the one who had pushed Sion-Ah that day. Meanwhile, Hunhop was attacked by Kyungjin under Yujin's influence. Luckily, she managed to break free and smashed the glasses, which brought Kyungjin back to her senses. Kyungjin had no memory of what had just happened. Then, Hunhop's eyes suddenly changed color, and the blood from her wounds began to float upward. In that moment, she was pulled into the same dimension where Jik was. Hunhop then asked Yujin to stop all of this and questioned why she was doing it. Yujin explained that the reason Hunhop was born with the ability to see the red lines was for this very day. That ability was not a curse but a blessing, a gift that humans secretly desired, because deep down, people always wanted to know about the private lives of others. Yujin appeared as the messenger of a god to grant that wish. Her followers then surrounded them so Hunhop wouldn't be able to escape and so they could fulfill the wish, but just as they were about to finish her off, someone suddenly stood in front of Hunhop to protect her. It was her mother. Her mother tearfully apologized, revealing that she too had possessed the glasses. It meant that Hunhop's father's death wasn't her fault, it was her mother who had known everything beforehand through the glasses. The storm of emotions inside Hunhop was used by Yujin to hurt her. Blood from her wounds slowly rose upward into the human world, followed by her entire body being lifted off the ground. Red lines burst out from inside her body. The lines then formed into a sphere called the Eye of God, and Hunhop was the key to completing the wish. Yujin shattered the sphere into countless red lines that would soon cover the human world, but suddenly Hunhop stood back up and killed Yujin. Even so, it was already too late, because Yujin had accomplished the purpose of their existence. Yujin's death threw her followers into a panic. They ran in every direction as the glasses began to disappear. Hunhop returned to the human world, which was now completely covered in red lines. Kyungjin then carried Hunhop away, while Jik, still under the influence of the glasses, nearly fell. Elsewhere, everyone was shocked by the appearance of the red lines glowing above the city sky. The lines stretched downward, hovering above people's heads, and now, the world that only Hunhop could once see was visible to everyone without the glasses. A year after the chaos caused by the appearance of the lines, many people chose to wear helmets out of shame after learning what the lines above their heads meant, yet even then, no one knew the real reason behind their existence. Meanwhile, Sion-Ah, now fully recovered, looked different. She was the only person without a red line above her head. Jik chose not to tell her what his father had done to her. Instead, he decided to focus on building a better relationship with her. Hunhop, on the other hand, walked alone again. The person she loved, the one who changed her life, was now gone. She visited Junson's grave and placed the jacket he used to wear on top of it, as a way to thank him for filling her heart. Suddenly, someone called her name from behind. And with that, the film comes to an end. Thank you to everyone who has stayed and watched until the very end. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss the next video from this channel. See you in the next video. Adios.